Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong, I am your host, and I'm super thrilled to be back here again. And today we're talking about something a little different once again, and that's what I love about all these different conversations that I'm having with all these wonderful people, is it's a different conversation each week. And today's topic, it surrounds around the tech world. It surrounds around how we're interacting with that tech world and how that is changing. And how it's also inviting some new opportunities to dabble in, whether it is with your lifestyle, whether it's with a passion, or maybe a side hustle. Today we are talking about how we all have a role to play in the new world of Web 3.0 and NFTs. So in this episode, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Taylor Tudisco, a VR creative director and web developer exploring deeper into the world of NFTs and their possibilities. We discuss and answer some of the, some of the big questions or some of the myths and some of the frequently asked questions around this new world, but we also dive into the new possibilities that this offers and what this can bring and present to the everyday Joe when we start to consider and think about the new opportunities for lifestyle, for passions, and for hustles. I do want to be very clear here though, we're no experts. You know, me talking to different people, I always find they're the expert because they're ahead of me in this game. But it really is just two people having a conversation. And I want to encourage you that if there's something here that has enlightened you and there's an area of interest within this space, I do encourage you to make sure you go do your own research, make sure you do your homework and understand. And we do have a few things that we can share along the way to help you do that. But I do want to make that clear that I'm still learning in this space, and there might be some controversial things that we say that maybe people don't agree with because we're learning and still trying to understand it ourselves. But it's an absolute awesome conversation. Really do appreciate Taylor coming out and having this conversation with me. Now, if you are new here, of course, we are on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all those great places. We are on YouTube for the video experience as well. So however you like to listen, get comfy and let's get into it. Welcome, Taylor, to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing grand, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. It's well, because you're in South Australia, so you're about 30 minutes behind me, I think. But it's actually a bit of a weird overcast morning here in Melbourne. It's wanting to be warm, but it's presenting as if it's about to be thunderstorms. So it's a bit weird. But yeah, I mean, look, that's Melbourne.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like at 5:45 this morning. I was like, yeah. Oh, really?
But I am enjoying now that it's getting brighter earlier. It's I'm a morning person, so I like to be able to get up and just, if you win the morning, you win the day kind of vibe. But it's always encouraging to be able to have that nice sunlight coming through, like the morning light coming through, or the natural light, because then it just feels better, right? And so we're here to hear all about you, and I know we've got a lot to talk about, and it's probably a bit of a jam-packed episode, but for people that have no idea who you are and a bit of an introduction, tell us about yourself, who you are, and maybe a high level bit of a background of what you've studied, or what your background is. But I guess first thing is who you are and what you're all about.
Do you want the easiest place to start is just to say straight out, I'm a big ass history nerd. And it's exactly why I've ended up the way I have. It's really interesting because everything's kind of come from there. So yeah, I pretty much accidentally fell into VR because I like history, and historical storytelling, and I kind of ended up in web design because I like history too. Because the space company went, "Hey, have us," and I was like, work with us, and I'm like, oh, history of space, things like that got me going, and it's like, okay, something awesome. So that's kind of where my worlds collided, and just a self-confessed nerd, love it. Will do anything. Books behind me, nothing. It's kind of like, it's just a weird, I know. I really, really, really struggle to answer kind of question, because it's like, who am I? Well, I'm me, right? There's nothing else. There's no extra layers, no nothing. Yes, I'm half Italian, things like that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm me, and that's it.
I love it. It's kind of like out of the Matrix, where it's like, do you think that's air you're breathing, or there is no spoon? You sound like a big mystery. Okay, so let's break it down. So your background, did you go to university? What did you study?
I was a history major.
Okay. No, that's good, right?
So I finished my degree about 6 months ago now.
Okay.
It was an arts media degree. So it was really interesting because I originally wanted to go into who God knows what, like graphic design,
Yep.
just straight graphic. And it was the discovery of VR through a few like, no. It was, I got given a job by a friend that was essentially a graphic job.
Right.
To like product lead her company into like the founding kind of stages, the early startup overseas. We need a designer to be able to do all our product layouts. And I was like, okay, cool. More and more I thought about things, the more I was like, do you know what? We don't need still visual images. We need AR. We need to be able to get your clients in a headset, not a headset, but like a pair of glasses, be able to visualize what's going to happen in their home and how their home is going to be transformed by this product. NDAs can't really say
that's
anything.
fair enough.
But yeah, and that was kind of like, well, hang on. How else can this kind of tech be used throughout not just storytelling, but like our world in general, historical sites, things like that. And then COVID happened. I burnt out real good. And I was like, I have a moment here. Like, essentially, I'm rendered useless. I can't work physically, mentally, wherever. And, because of a viral infection. And it was just this moment of, I have a choice. I can change everything now, just go where I want to go, and that's it. Or I can continue along this path that would essentially kill me.
Yep.
So I took the immersive tech path, and that's kind of how it led there. So it's all really amalgamated. There's no real, one direction of how things happened.
Of course,
it was just little instances,
it's
including
a
viral infection. Yeah, exactly. And bloody grateful for it. But
But it's kind of like, it's the saying, when life gives you lemons, it's like, what do you do with it, right? And I'm very curious because, when you talk about, you've majored in history, but then you're in this whole tech world of, VR especially. And the first thing I think of is, I think they introduced it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you could go back and basically go through, I think it was Odyssey or Origins, basically go through the Egyptian world without playing the game, but just go through and explore.
Really?
It wasn't VR, but like, you being a character could walk around and just, get to know the sites, get to know some of the history. And that makes me think of what you've kind of just shared. But
wow, yeah.
I'm curious though. So you majored in history. So where has the tech, has that always been self-taught or something that you've always had an interest in? Or you also mentioned that you've kind of just done this deep dive immersive into that, and it's just kind of been the last 6 months, or has that always been an itch that you've been scratching?
I think the tech's always been an itch. It's like, I've never been one of those, it's like, the latest tech, gotta have it. It's kind of like, you're kind of watching from the outside, and especially being in that, like, that startup incubator kind of thing, you find out about the companies that are innovating in satellite tech and the ones who are changing the way that, asbestos management and like finding is being done, and you're like, okay, that's there. Then I guess it's the itch for the angel, the investor in me, like, the VC angel investor kind of type in me has always been like, what's next? We have this now, but where are we going? So it's kind of, it's a massive itch that partly comes from that, and partly comes from just, having a family with a very large business background, and things like that. So it's kind of like, well, it's within, it's in your DNA in a way.
Yeah, and it's always good to reflect on roots. It's like whether it is, tech, or why you have an interest in history, or maybe that's why you love books as well, right? And it sometimes can be the complete opposite, because you didn't grow up with books around you. You've wanted to invest that time into it to get to know them. So I completely understand that. So it sounds like there's a lot to explore there. That there's a lot there in terms of your journey of getting to where you are today. But what we're here to really talk about is, for anyone that hasn't picked it up yet, from my introduction, is basically the new world of where we're going, of NFTs, Web 3.0 and VR, which is a very hyped topic at the moment, and it's very broad and lots of buzzwords. And I must admit, I'm still trying to figure out the whole digital playground around it all, because there's a lot of it. And I think what's scary is because there is so much of it, it's different from being immersed into it, because when you're going into immerse, you're going in with intent to learn. But you know, if you look up NFTs, you're just bombarded with so much. If you go into Twitter, if you go into YouTube, if you go into Instagram, TikTok, like there's just so much. It's kind of like, I need someone to break it down as if, like, you know, I'm a 5-year-old in a children's storybook or something. And I think, you know, essentially that's what we're going to talk about. But you know, that's the intent that we want to try and cover today. But I know you've probably got a bit more understanding than I do. But let's quickly touch on that. I mean, NFTs, Web 3.0 and VR. I think VR, virtual reality, people can probably grasp that a bit better. I think the Web 3.0 and NFTs, that's where it's probably like, hang on, what are we talking about there?
Yes, yeah, for sure. So NFTs, the simplest definition, are digital assets that live on the big I word, an immutable ledger, in fact.
Okay.
Which pretty much means, well, the ledger is the blockchain, but they're essentially digital assets that live on chain that cannot be meddled with, recreated, or destroyed unless the holder burns it and destroys it themselves, right? So it's pretty much the simplest definition you can give.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess if you were to put it into something of relative terms of today's age, it's kind of like, I'm going out on a out on a limb here, but with that theory, it's kind of like, all right, well, you've got something, there's one of it, and for instance, let's say a painting. There's a painting. There's the original of it. Someone can try and copyright it, but it would never be the same. Now, I know in the digital world, you can't obviously copy it because it wouldn't make sense. Someone would literally have to go hand draw it all again. But of that digital asset, it's kind of like a fingerprint of some sense. Like you and me, we have a fingerprint. You and I will never have the same fingerprint. We might have very, very close fingerprints, or if you had a twin or something like that, but there's nothing ever identical to it. That's probably, I guess, but it's in a digital space, it can go anywhere. You can sell it, you can move it, you can all that jazz. But that's on a whole different layer. But would that probably be the most simplified way of putting it when we represent it to ourselves, of a fingerprint or someone's DNA cannot be replicated, or it's not the same as someone else's? Okay.
Absolutely. I'm stealing it too.
Yeah, go for it. So, okay. So that's NFTs. And for anyone who doesn't know, so that's non-fungible token, right? And I do want to just put the disclaimer for anyone that is listening to this. We're no experts, Taylor knows more than me, so she's the expert compared to me. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, you do need to do your research, and we're going to chat about that later. So Web 3.0, I grew up when I grew up doing HTML coding, through IT in high school. We had to build a little websites, and you put the little jeepers, it's a flashback now. So I think Web 2.0 has, you started to have CSS, you got JavaScript, and that started to come to life and what you can do. But I kind of moved out of it then. So now we're moving into this world of people saying, what's Web 3.0? What's Web 3.0?
Okay, so simplest way of describing it, it's kind of like the progression. We all kind of look back on, well, I have anyway, I've always looked back on web1.com era with like this air of nostalgia. It's this thing where it was like, whoa, the internet, what could be done, everything was open source, everything like that. And then we kind of melded in, there was kind of like this roadblock started appearing where people were like, actually be better if software kind of became closed, so think your social media platforms and things like that. So they closed off the thing, and you kind of really didn't own your data. You could sign up to these platforms. And next thing you know, like, you don't own the post. You delete the account and they all go, So it's kind of not really your stuff. Web3 is kind of bringing together the best of both, where it's like, it's open source and you own all your data,
right?
Because it's connected to your wallet, right? So it's kind of just this big progression to this point of the best of both worlds coming together, you know?
So I guess if we to break it down in me reinterpreting it. So when we think of Web 1.0, that's I mean, we probably were really young. We didn't really comprehend the internet back then, but it was the bare bones. It was, you know, the being able to send data over a highway across the world, or email, you know, the real bare bones. And it would have been the skeleton HTML even. And then you've got Web 2.0, as you said, you've got your social media platforms, and you're able to do some pretty cool and wonderful things. But that's when I guess data started to become centralized to a single location, in terms of, we'll use Twitter or Facebook as an example. You know, you put inputs in, they're storing it, you create something, you can do all these amazing things with that data, or they can. But it also gives you the ability to be able to do things. And then when we take a leap forward, you've got 3.0 essentially, which then I guess decentralizes that, puts it back into your hands, and it removes that middleman, or I guess that someone in between of managing your data. And it also removes some of those restrictions and boundaries that they put in terms of, you know, red tape, or you know, things that you can or cannot do, which is a really weird to think about, because like even to fathom that, it's a bit hard. But I guess maybe to help break it down, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're here to talk about furthering your lifestyle and, you know, passions, hobbies, and business and lifestyle. So how do we bring that into the realm of like art, games, collectibles, utilities, music, and all that, the stuff that, you know, people are trying to make their livelihoods out of? How does that start to then play a part into some of those domains?
It's that kind of tokenization factor. So yes, everything's owned by you, but tokens are now the big thing. So like sports teams are coming out with their own coins, their own NFTs, and it's kind of like you can own part of that, you know. And Ozuri's doing it at the moment. Not entirely sure what's going on, but they're kind of getting there. And like, you know, a lot of musicians are now transferring onto chain, where you see they're now able to have control of their own royalties. There are no, you know, producers, there are no big teams behind them. Just them creating stuff they love. And things like that.
So for music, let's dive that in. Let's dive into that a little bit. So how does that work? So traditionally at the moment, let's say, you know, I'm going to start singing and I want to, you know, produce an album or whatever. I'm going to have to go to a producer or a label, and essentially they're going to take me through that process. And they basically are going to get a cut, or they start to own the licensing of that song. So, I released the album with this producer X. And then let's say it hits the big time, you know, there's 20 songs on there. They own the rights to the song. I'm just kind of like the means of, or the medium of creating that song, like getting it out to people because I'm singing it. And let's say all of a sudden I'm hitting, you know, $10 million, or, you know, you're getting paid per stream or something, you know, because they own the licenses to it, they're probably getting, let's say they're getting 60%, I'm getting 40% or something like that. That's traditionally, I assume, how it works at the moment. So in this new world, how does it differ? Like, can you break that down in the sense of, so if I was going to do exactly the same thing, but by myself, how would it work?
At the moment, we're going to use the example of a lot of these kind of like platforms, so these marketplaces that exist, because it's easier all around for a few. So these, let's say you create a song, you would then upload it to the marketplace and set your royalty. So these marketplaces have their smart contracts. So every NFT is uploaded to a smart contract, right? And this smart contract essentially says X will, like, you know, when someone buys it, X will have, you know, if you've got extra unlockables and things you want them to have, it's kind of involved. There's a lot there. But essentially, it will also set a royalty, let's say 15%. So every sale that happens, so if one person buys it and then the next person on the secondary buys it, when the person on the secondary buys it, you'll get that 15, right? And it's kind of like, the royalties are now back in the musician's hands. And we're slowly starting to see, I know Domino, I think was his name, a few weeks back, he released an album. I think it's the first big like NFT album essentially around. And I think he did Oh no, I think he's up to about 4 million streams worth
Right.
at least. I think it's closer to 10 actually. Of like the amount that he would have gotten for 10 million streams he got from selling less than 7,000
Right.
NFTs. Like that's nuts, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay.
it's kind of like, I think I'm butchering this slightly, aren't I?
Well, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play
Yeah.
it back then. So,
Yes.
and once again, this is, as I said to everyone, I'm learning here as well, but trying to just open the conversation. So if people have comments, thoughts, let us know at the same time. But I think so the way I play it back is, okay, so I can go create an NFT or a token and release it saying, guys, this is my song X. And, you can buy, I guess, is it actually a listen, or it would be actually you buy a piece of it? So there might be 10,000 versions of that song. Is that essentially how it works?
Yeah.
And you can buy one of those 10,000 songs for 0.01 ETH, or we'll just say 1 ETH just to make it easier for correspondence and understanding. But so you can buy it for 1 ETH. Someone buys that, and let's say all this 10,000 sold. So now all of a sudden he's got, we'll say $10,000 or 10,000 ETH worth of people purchasing his song. So he could then go ride that wave and start to create more, buy a studio, do all these things to be able to produce it himself, because he's basically got a community or crowdsourced or crowdfunded. But then if someone else goes sells that one of those 10,000, or if it's a listen or however it works. So this is where I somewhat get confused. So if they sell it to someone else, so then the person, myself as the musician, I would then get a 15% cutback, like a royalty, or does the person that owns the actual one of the NFTs, do they get a cut of it too?
Yes. So you would, as the creator, you'd get, let's say, that 10 or 15% royalty, and the actual owner who sold it would get the rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it actually opens up this, I guess, this crowdsourcing opportunity where you can remove all, those middlemen people, once again, as we kind of discussed at the start, and it actually takes away the need to having producers or a manager to find someone for you or something like that. And you can basically remove those middleman fees or cuts, and it actually creates a lot of exclusivity to, especially existing bands. I know there's bands, and this comes back to some of the utility side of things that I touched on. I said there's art, games, collectibles, utilities. So a band, I've heard rumors about bands actually, thinking about releasing, let's say, saying 10,000 NFTs. And of those 10,000, there's 1 of 1s and, 5 of 10s, and 5 of 5s and 10 of 10s, meaning if you get one of those items, because it's a blind box being, it's a mystery box kind of thing. You pay the same for everything, and you might get the rare one. And one of them might mean that you can fly out and play golf with the band members anytime, or you get unlimited access to all their touring shows, or you get pre-access to all their band merch. And these are like limited versions or limited editions of these. Think of it from a trading card perspective. You get a pack of cards, you pay $6, you might get a super rare, which is worth $60, or you might just get lots of duds and they're all worth 1 cent each. It's the same concept or mentality. So when I think about that from a band perspective, even if you were playing in the world where, you've already been produced, someone else has licensing to your songs, now you're selling yourself as a musician or as a celebrity or as an icon, and doubling down on that to give access to your fan base and to take it to a whole new level. That's essentially when you can start to then put that next layer again, rather than just people buying and having, I've got one of the 10,000 songs, but actually, no, now I've actually got this access with a utility to the band, which, you could never really have that in any other way other than trying to sell tickets or things like that. So it opens up this whole new world. And I guess then if you own one of those digital assets, I own the one where I can go fly out and see the band members anytime or play golf. If I sell that to someone else, I'm going to get money, the band members get money, and the person then gets the rights to use that utility. So all of a sudden you're really, it's quite interesting.
Oh yeah. And it's just like, And the possibility is endless. And that sounds great, but it's also really bloody hard, because then
Yeah.
you've got to sit down and you go, where can I actually go? Like, how, it's mind blowing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even,
Exactly. And I think that's why it's quite overwhelming. I mean, and I know when we first caught up before doing this episode, we chatted about, well, there's a lot of myths and there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of things that are confusing about it, and lots of burning questions. I mean, and then I'm starting to see more people jump on this bandwagon where they kind of want to get involved, and even yourself reaching out to make this happen. But we've touched on what an NFT is at a very, very high level. And I'm sure other people will have their different ways of interpreting it or defining it. But, for someone coming in blind to the world of crypto, NFTs, blockchain, Web 3.0, where does one even start to even, like, how can someone get involved, right? Because there's people saying, oh, you should be buying this, you need to be buying this crypto, you should be jumping on Bitcoin. And then that's Bitcoin, but then there's like how many other thousand tokens or coins? Then you've got these NFTs that people are saying, what is it, the bored apes, or all these crazy JPEGs or pictures of things, and everyone's just like, what the heck is going on? Because people paying millions of dollars for a JPEG. Or pet rocks I've heard of going for $50,000, which is just a picture of a rock. So where does one even, I guess, start to break down? Because clearly we're not going to be able to give people the answers here. Is there some recommendation or thought on how how people can get involved in a safe way, or how they can start to understand?
My first thing is it always starts with research, and just not jump in, but kind of jump in. So whether it's jump on something like Clubhouse and just listen to what's going on.
Right. Yep.
Just start, listening to podcasts is probably easier than anything else, because, you jump onto Twitter, it's just bombard, people selling things left, right, and center. Yep. It's hectic. Even for someone who's been there for months, I break once every few weeks. It's just like, no, I can't, no more. So it's like, Clubhouse, podcasts. What else? Just making yourself, like, if you're doing it at the same time as a few buddies, like, you can all go in together, and then, like, chat about it. Find those kind of circles that you really enjoy and you're kind of close to, and then, really get in with them, and then start to pan out.
I think that makes sense, because I think why it's so weird is, I mean, it's like with anything new. I mean, we shouldn't, it's like when you're trying to learn anything, you need to take time, invest time, and be willing. But I feel like there's this catch-22 at the moment, and not saying that this is the case, but there's so much hype on it. So everyone has this FOMO mentality, like, I'm going to miss out. I need to know all this overnight. Like, I need to be the expert. But I think when we play back, even studying history, or, when we go to university, or learning to ride a bike, or even learning to read, right? They don't happen overnight. And usually it is with other people, reading with your parents, or someone helping you, get off the training wheels, or, when you go through university, you're going through multiple subjects of learning. So I think understanding when you're jumping into this is going in with not an intent to learn overnight, but an intent to learn over I mean, I wouldn't have any idea, but I would probably say it would take a good 3 to 6 months of actually being able to, I mean, here we are talking very high level. I've been reading a lot, but I'm no pro. I don't have an NFT. I've got some crypto. But the more and more we conversate about it, the more and more we can start to understand. I guess the only way I can probably play it back is like when we think of Pokemon cards is, there's a huge hype, and I never had it as a kid, but now that it's all happening, you can see, if people are watching the YouTube experience, you can see the Pokemon cards here on my side. But, I all of a sudden I wanted to buy, so I just started buying heaps of stuff. And then I realized, hang on, why am I buying this? Like, I don't even know what I want from it. I don't even know the intent of it. Like, why do I want that? And it took me a while. It took me about 3 months to kind of step back and think, well, what are the actual cards, or what do I actually want to get from this? And I made a list of, 150 chase cards that I want. So that way, when I'm buying with the intent to get that card. and then I can sell the cards if I don't, and just purchase the card that I do want. And I think it's the same mentality when it comes into the world of crypto, or anything that you're learning, or Web 3.0 or NFTs is, well, why are you buying it? Are you just buying it because everyone's doing it? Because I don't think that's the right mentality, because you'll probably get burnt hard, right? And lose a lot of money, or, go into these scams. And, I think I'm getting, 10 messages a day from all these scams around crypto and things like that, because if it sounds too good, it's too good to be true. So I think that's probably the best way to do it. But maybe for people that don't understand, we have touched on some buzzwords there of like NFT projects. We've talked about NFTs. So, what are NFT projects? And are they, should they be complicated, or are they a bad investment? Are they pointless, or what is all that about?
Okay, let's first off, not all of them are a bad investment, right? Some of them are, some of them aren't. My big thing, like we're kind of saying, is really look at the message behind these things, right? Because, I know there's a group, the Alpha Girl group, who's doing a lot for mental health and things like that. Whereas there are just some others that are like, here, have an animal, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what else is going on. Just have a pretty koala.
Yep.
Now, it was Australian. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But I was also like, no.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I didn't have the eighth. But yeah, so these projects are essentially, they don't have to be like 10,000 pieces. They could be 20 pieces. But these kind of projects are essentially a group of NFTs that are related, that kind of work towards a common goal, right? Okay. So where the common goal isn't anything huge, or it's something, again, like our alphas, which is like, let's do something for mental health, things like that. So yeah, that's a simple, I don't think anyone's actually ever defined it.
Well, it's because I think that's where people get confused, because at one moment, I guess maybe the best example is probably, for those that don't know, Gary V. So he released one called V Friends, right? And I think actually my recommendation, because that's where I've learned the most, is if you want to learn, and I'll put this in the show notes, so go check out V Friends, and he explains it quite well there. But the concept is, if anyone doesn't know Gary V, he's a self-made millionaire. He's not a billionaire, he's a millionaire. And he does a lot of stuff. So go look him up on YouTube and you'll see everything about him. But I think how he does it is he's basically gone through this journey of business, and there's these, I guess he's created, I think it's a series of 26 different pictures of just drawings of, whether they're little character cards, and they all have a relation or a story behind them. And I'm butchering this because I don't know the name, but let's just say there's a dinosaur called G, right? G the dinosaur. And that has some relevance to him growing up in his business journey. And if you purchase that, it's, there's a story behind it, that maybe G the dinosaur had to have a lot of empathy to be able to get to where he was. And in that, he gives people the right to purchase it. And there's a version of it which gives them access to maybe all of his VCons, right, over the next couple of years. And so that has a utility to it. Whereas others, they're just one to have because, there's a limited amount of them. They don't necessarily have a utility. Then there's ones which they give you access to. It's kind of like the band mentality that I was talking about. You get certain utilities, certain access. But the idea is that this whole project is a series of, as you said, a group of NFTs working towards a single purpose, or to deliver a single message or a single purpose, and to help raise awareness. And I think it's still very early days. V Friends is probably far beyond a lot of the others, because a lot of people are just doing JPEGs, and you can, or I know people you can buy eggs, and then over time, kind of like a Tamagotchi, it hatches and it might turn into one of the rare ones or something. Which is a cool concept. Like anyone that had a Tamagotchi can understand. But I think that's where it gets a little weird, because like, well, why are you buying this? What is the intent here? But I think having an understanding of like, well, we're doing this to raise awareness. If you do this, this is what it can do. Or every one sold, it gives access, or kind of like, if you were helping out a child in need across the other side of the world, pay $2 a month, and you help out a child. But I guess in that same mentality, but it's I think where it gets confusing is it's hard to comprehend how that kind of plays. Like you mentioned one around, was it mental health? Was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Club,
how does that work?
So as far as I know, I'm a little bit
Yeah.
scratchy on it, but you buy the alpha, and then there's a whole lot of other access you get, but it also gives you access to an app that they're building and developing,
Right.
which is all, full of meditations,
Yep.
full of what else, just support, like full on support, everything if you need it, when you need it, kind of thing. So there's very much a social token to it,
Right.
it's, so you're part of this club,
Right.
kind of thing, via owning the NFT, but then that also gives you access to all this other stuff,
Yeah.
And
So once again, that utility focus, like a VIP card or membership card or something. Whereas, if anyone else was to work with the organization, it would just be normal, over the phone, over the counter. Whereas I guess probably looking at it from an airline perspective, you've got your VIP lounges for those that are club members. And you can go into this exclusive area, do all these things. Okay. But then again, how does that then help with the mental health awareness and all that? How does that further that? Because cool, you get access to it, but I could, there's plenty of apps that are for free and I get mental health, help and things like that. So where do you start to, how do you differ it?
I guess it's all in the rest of it, right? Now, again, I'm not entirely an expert on what they're doing. I've read their stuff, everything like that, but it's about being part of a community as well, and about being part of a group. Again, like going back to that social token kind of idea, it's like, well, that token means you're part of a club. If you own a V friend, you're part of that club, you're part of that group. And it's just very much a massive community vibe that's starting to happen, which we're seeing again with the transformation into like the Web3 world. There's a lot of like, it's less about individual and individual slamming marketing, things like that. It's more so the community is together. There's a group together, and that kind of does the marketing for you. That's a whole nother conversation about,
but I can understand that. It's kind of like brand value at an individual level. So for instance, if I have, once again, coming back to Gary Vee, because that's all I kind of know, but in the same sense of like, okay, if I have one of these NFTs from Gary, all of a sudden there's this, I guess, this brand level awareness that I've been raised up under the same level of Gary, because, I've got a chunk of him. So I flash that. It's like, oh, you're in the Gary, you're in the V friends community. It's like, cool, you're all good. Like it's, you bring some level of, whatever, whether you've paid up for it or there's only one of those, or, maybe you actually were just one of the early people to get involved. So it just gives some level of credibility or authority. But then, and I can understand that from a JPEG perspective, like people just buying, these Bored Apes and stuff, and you can put that as a profile picture. And that's more of a, once again, don't know all the details behind it and if there's a utility, but I can understand how that gives you a bit of a flex from a, display pics. Like I own this Bored Ape, I paid, however millions of dollars for it. So boom, I'm going to flex it, right? It's kind of like walking around with a big diamond ring, right? You flex it. I can understand that, but it's a weird mentality to shift towards, because it's like, well, I mean, we all like to be part of something, whether, I'm a runner, so whether you're in a running community or, maybe, you have big love for books, so you're in a book club. And I think it will be very interesting to see how all these start to become not just, it's a cliche of the usual utility, or it's a cliche of a normal NFT, but how does it start to differ and actually bring back value or add value to individuals? Because I've heard a lot of people saying, I'm starting an NFT project, I'm doing this. And it's like, okay, that's great. What does that mean? I have no idea. Like it's kind of like, that sounds cool. But for me, I think when I think about NFT projects, I'm looking at, well, who's the person behind it? And do I believe in what they're doing? And do, if I love their brand, do I love their community? Do I stand for what they're doing? Then, I'd be like, yeah, I'm all in on that. Whatever they create, I'm buying, because I'm loyal or I'm a fan or a super fan. So, and I can see the value that having something like that could bring me, because anything they do just, 10Xs or whatever. So that's my concept on it. Whereas you know, it's like if I was to create an NFT for the podcast, in some sense, I guess I've done that because I've created, I've got enamel pins, and there's guest versions, there's versions which are limited edition, you know, there's only X amount of them printed, and then there's open ones to anyone, right? And so when a guest comes on, you being a guest, you'll get one as well. You get this exclusive pin, right? And that means, you know, 10 years down the line, you can be like, yeah, I got this, whether I hit the big time or not. You know, there's a piece there. It's like, well, you were part of the original, however many there were. And then if people wanted to support the podcast, they can get the limited edition version, which is a bit more, but it's a gold version compared to just a black and white. So there's a limited amount of them. And then, you know, then there's just someone to be part of a smaller amount. They can just pay, you know, the $19 and get the basic one. And that to me is that same exclusivity, because for me, having a guest one, it's like, well, this signifies that you're a guest, that you've been on the podcast. Whereas you've got something like limited edition. Okay, they don't want to be a guest, or maybe they weren't able to be a guest, but I'm still, you know, one of the gold rockers of, you know, one of the gold enamel pins. So it brings that level of credibility, or how valued you are in the community potentially. It's kind of like different perks and emojis that you can get when you become, you know, subscribers on Twitch and things like that. So I can understand the power behind it, but it's still quite overwhelming. Which brings me probably to the next part of the conversation. And we are going very fast and rapid in this. So people, I'm sure there's people listening. I'm sure you guys are going to have questions, and we're going to talk about potential resources in a moment. But I guess the next conversation that I wanted to have with you was around, okay, so, and we've touched on it briefly around, you know, building this into our businesses, into our hustles, into our lifestyles. So I guess, how can one go ahead and start to dabble in these, as whether you're a creator, building a business, or maybe you just have a passion for something? Where would be the best place to go start on that?
I think it's an interesting question to ask where to start.
Or dabble, or
you can't
get
even
involved.
say, you can't even say like, go and look at what X is doing, because probably no one else in the field may be doing anything, right? And that's like, it's really interesting. So like, you can think about it. I'd literally, to begin with, if you're looking at actually starting and building something, I'd just get out a blank piece of paper and write down everything you can think of. Like, I mean, okay, I want to self-finance something. How could I potentially do that? You know, just bombard that piece of paper and then take a few days and maybe come back to it, look at it, and kind of go, okay, that's cool, that could be done. And then kind of start immersing yourself in the space. Then you can kind of go, okay, that can actually be done. You know, don't look at trends, like just kind of look around what's going on and seeing like where those gaps are, kind of thing.
Of how can that, so for instance, if you think of a really unique way, it's then going and think, okay, researching that unique way, has it been done? Can it be done? Is there an application for it? Has it been applied? Or can you be the first person to apply it or bring that concept to life? And I think that's actually a really good advice, because I think if you strip away the world of NFTs and all that jazz, when we come back to, you have an idea, you know, you want to build a business, or you want to be a creator, you want to create content. I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, to start, it's kind of like, well, write down the 20 things that you can do today, or 20 things that need to happen in order to get to where you want to be. And then out of those 20, identify the 5 that you can actually start to do, and then identify the one that you can start on today, kind of thing. And regardless, it's like kind of getting it down on paper, brainstorming and understanding, well, what are you even trying to achieve? Because if you're right, because if you go the other way and think, okay, these guys are building all these digital assets, you know, exclusivity, I'm just going to do that for the sake of doing it. It probably doesn't play the same level of, I guess, trust or authenticity that, you know, they're doing it. Because Gary Vee, you know, he's built up that legacy of who he is in the business world. So him going, releasing something like that, there's a trust. People are like, well, of course, it makes sense. I want to be part of that. Whereas if all of a sudden Chris, you know, which, you know, I might have an audience of 1,000 people in my own community, you know, maybe 1% would be, I'm interested in that. But it's kind of like, it kind of flops, because it's not like, well, we don't even know what we're doing or why we're here. Whereas I start from bottom up and building up this, you know, momentum, or helping understand, well, what do I even want to achieve from my community? How do I want people to grow? What's the value add? and break it down that perspective, I think it's a very smart idea. Which then, okay, so let's say people have broken it down, they've got some ideas, then let's talk about resources, trusted places where people can go to get information, or if you were going to do some research, or we can put all these in a list and I can put them in the show notes, but what are some of the websites or some of the places to go to potentially get some more information?
Gotcha. First one is, there's a discussion between Tim Ferriss, Chris Dixon, and Naval.
Okay.
I'd go there first. Before I listened to that, was very much confused about this concept. I thought I knew what was kind of going on, and then everything kind of clicked. So I'd definitely go there. I'd write down notes. I'd pause it every 5 minutes if you have to, kind of thing. And just it's very, that one's probably the key one. I know Kevin Rose has his own podcast. Again, all these are linked, plus a whole lot more. OpenSea's NFT Bible kind of gives you a very rough idea.
Okay.
I'd go and look at, and then I'd go, is it Tezos.art? Kind of got a whole lot of things about different, like, Tezos wallets, things like that. So so it's kind of like, there's a whole lot. It's kind of messy. It's all very messy. It's kind of like,
and that's
there's no order to anything.
Correct.
No one knows. So it's just like,
I totally agree, right?
You know?
And it's very overwhelming because there is a lot of it happening. But those resources I think is good, and they're going to be different for other people. And like for me, if people ask me, and I'm like, if I can't explain, I'm like, go read this thing on Gary V or V Friends, like, because that's the only thing that has made more sense to me. But I think other thing is like, maybe the best way is maybe not necessarily going out and purchasing, but if there is someone that is building an NFT project, is immersing yourself to follow their journey and asking them questions. Like I think that's probably a really good way as well. But there is a lot of, like I said at the start, there's a lot of hype on this, and everyone's putting their take. And my advice to anyone has always been, it's like when you're investing, don't invest in something unless you're willing to lose it, or also don't invest in something if you don't understand it. So being able to learn and grow, if you're just buying, I think maybe there's some level of like buying Bitcoin, you want to put $500 in and see what happens. That's different, right? I'm saying, like, if you're going to go buy an NFT because everyone's buying it, well, that's wrong. It's like going down the street and just, trying to get all, something at the retail store because everyone else is buying it, and then they'll all run out. But then you realize, well, it just sits around, does nothing. It loses its value, and then it's worthless, right? So doing your research and just reading up on it from your own understanding, because what you read and how you comprehend it will be different to what I read and what I comprehend, and so forth for everyone else. So I think raising that awareness and asking people questions, I think that's where I've really let myself down, is because I read a lot, but I'm too scared to ask, or I'm too scared to put an opinion out there. And us doing this conversation is scary as heck, because there's probably a lot of things here saying where people won't necessarily agree, or people will have their different opinions, but there'll be people here that think, oh, I've just learned so much, or I had no idea. So, okay, so we've got those list of resources and whatnot. And of course, if there's anything else that we think of, we'll chuck it down into the list below. But I do encourage people to go spend some time and understand this. If this is something that interests you, you need to invest your own time. We're not here to give you the answers. We're not here to give you, go do this, and then, you'll get all the answers, but there's lots of resources. And I think the Tim Ferriss one is a great one, because I haven't listened to it, but Tim Ferriss, he comes with a lot of authority. He's a big player in, the entrepreneur business world. So there's credibility there, that when he's having a conversation, it's going to be broken down in a way that, okay, this makes sense, or actually we can probably trust it better than, some random YouTuber that's, got 500 followers, and, you've never heard of him, and he's saying, do all this, buy that, and you're going to be a rich millionaire. You can start to weigh up, the differences. Okay. So in this space, then I think, for you, I guess, is there any advice around you getting into this space that you've maybe learned, or that you want to share, just to, to make people conscious of?
I think the biggest one's take your time. Don't just launch. I made the biggest mistake of, I launched a project within, I think it was about 3 weeks. No, it's about about maybe 6 weeks being in space, and then decided to change chains, everything like that, because just things weren't going. Again, the London update on ETH just happened, and gas went skyrocketing. And it's like, we physically can't. So it was kind of like, just I've made, mistakes about which chain to put it on. So really understand, what your chain options are. Like, don't even think of them like chains, think of them like computers. So like, what base code are you putting this on?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good understanding.
Yeah, and just, investments. Yes, I invested in Super Yetis. It didn't really work out. It's like, well, that doesn't matter, does it? Because I bought it again for the message and the fact that the funds were essentially going into helping people and like saving people from human trafficking. So it's kind of like, that's why I invested. I don't mind that that's sitting in my wallet. Like, so definitely, just if this went to zero, would you actually give a damn, essentially?
Yeah, that's
it's
really
really
a really
real
good
question.
Point. Yeah, because it's the same. Like, I haven't purchased any NFTs, so for everyone that's listening, I have Bitcoin, I have Ethereum, and I have some doggy coin, because it was like, oh yeah, I'll put $50 in it. What's the worst that can happen, right? But I got in probably only about a year ago. Probably about a year ago, and it's grown quite a lot, compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, what it was. So I think Bitcoin was 26,000 at the time, and Ethereum was $450. So I mean, I've only put in about $500, $1,000, but it's like, well, I want to start to put something in there. So then, as I'm still learning, that's potentially growing. And ideally, I want to buy an NFT, but I'm thinking that me saying that I want to buy an NFT, it doesn't really have any value to it. It's like, well, I don't want to just buy it for the sake of it. I know I have the intent, but I'm waiting until I understand it. I'm waiting until I have something that makes sense. Like you said, around the Super Yeti, you purchased it and it was for the great cause. And now you get this, you get an icon to be able to demonstrate, well, you have this Super Yeti, which is corresponding to helping someone from, was child slavery, was it? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So, human trafficking. So there's that level of connection and what you're part of. And I think having that understanding of like, okay, if this hits zero, if this bottoms out, are you going to be okay with it? At least you still have the digital asset, right? And something to be able to show, well, I have a picture, or I have whatever it may be. And obviously you can get into the world of NFTs, which are virtual reality, NFTs that are videos, NFTs that are music, NFTs that there's so much practicability around it and all ways of applying it. And I think asking yourself that question is key, but also what you said around taking your time. I think you really have to, because we are still early days. I know there's so much hype, but really, when you think about the amount of people that are dabbling in this, it's not that many in the, the spectrums of things. So there's still time. Don't stress about that.
Well, we're early. I think now everyone's saying we're just early. So you're still early, no matter what. Even if you're just doing your research, that's it. You're going to be early for a good year at least, like significantly early. Maybe now that everything with Facebook becoming Meta and things start changing.
Correct.
But
that's true. It kind of puts a bit of a roadmap in some sense, where the metaverse is that answer. But now that they've put it out there, there's going to be a lot more push for things to happen, which probably just means there'll be more information coming out. But if anyone hasn't listened to what we're talking about, so Facebook changed the name to Meta, and they're on this journey to build the metaverse. And essentially what that means is they're basically, if you've seen Ready Player One, that's where they're trying to build and create. Very high level, it's not all that, but yeah, you get the point. So in that video, Mark Zuckerberg actually says that over the next 5 to 10 years, like 5 to 10 years, right, is when this would kind of become what we're doing on Facebook, the everyday, or something of a normal, I guess, use. So we are still early. If that's 5 to 10 years from now, you've got a long way to learn and a long way to get involved. And that's just the metaverse from Meta's, expectation and what they're trying to build. So there's everyone else, all the other competitors, all the other, I guess, companies and people trying to pioneer this space. So we're on a marathon here. We're not on a sprint. I feel like there's a lot of people trying to sprint just to get on the bandwagon, and some people will get really, really lucky. but I think some people will get really, really burnt. So there's some really good advice,
Yeah.
Taylor. Thank you. I want to jump into a little segment which is not related to what we've been talking about, which is rapid fire questions, just to get people to know you a bit better. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's more just have some fun and to finish on that more personal note. So answer short and sharp. Unless you think there's some, big points of value to add, then we can dive into it. But the first one is favorite book or audio book. And if anyone is watching, she is sitting in front of probably 150, 200 books. So what would be your favorite book?
This one, Trouble with Peace. Joe Abercrombie. Like, if you haven't read Joe, go and do it.
Is that a
grimdark sci-fi fan? Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's what. Yeah. Okay. I've never heard of it, but now that I have, it's something I have to do a bit of homework and research on. So, is he like a long time author? Because that book looks like it's kind of like a recent addition. But how long has that spanned for? Like, are we talking from 90s or earlier?
I think. I don't remember. I think the first trilogy was 2012.
Okay.
Oh no, even earlier. So I reckon maybe mid 2000s, and then about 3 years ago he started the second one.
Nice.
Second trilogy.
That's great.
But yeah, good.
Okay, no, I love it.
Same level as Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. Not same level at all, but kind of like in the heart. Kind of like
nice.
Yeah, let's live.
I have to go suss that out then. Favorite pop culture brand or universe?
Middle Earth count?
Yeah, that's like Lord of the Rings. I think universe? yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. Loved The Hobbit. I remember playing The Hobbit on GameCube. And growing up, before my parents would let me watch Lord of the Rings, because Hobbit wasn't out then, they made me read the books first to make sure I understood, comprehended, which I can really, really say thanks to now, because reading the books, I got this idea, imagination, and we didn't have anything like a Lord of the Rings series in terms of the level of detail it was at the time it came out. And then going and watching it, and especially the extended editions and how detailed and how it played back. And then I was super excited and super happy with how that turned out. But then I was also super disappointed when they cut out that one scene. I'm like, I remember that scene in the book, but it wasn't in the movie or something. So that's a great answer. I love it. Middle Earth all the way.
Hang on, have you started watching Wheel of Time?
No, I haven't, and I haven't read the books either. But I've been hearing a lot of.
It's fine.
It's like the whole Game of Thrones thing, where it's you've got the book version, you've got the TV series. So
interesting.
Yeah, but no, I haven't.
A book reader, it's interesting because every single book reader I've met personally since has been like, I loved it. There were only a few people who are like, oh, that's interesting to hear.
Okay. But do you think not reading the books, going and watching it makes any difference?
No. Okay. No, I have a buddy who did that, and he's like, oh, love it. And I'm sitting here like, oh. I think there's just a lot of little things in there that work for us.
Of course.
And that's like...
It's like with anything. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next one then for you is dream job you wanted to have when you were a kid.
For years, I wanted to be a nurse.
Okay.
Then I wanted to... I don't know. That's hard because I think it changed.
Of course.
So
but it sounds like the nurse is probably the first one that comes to mind.
The one to begin with. Yeah. Which is really hilarious.
It's always interesting to reflect back on our childhoods, because we have a whole different understand, and we're not biased against the world, or we think it's pretty and it's perfect and all that jazz. But it's always interesting. I think for me, I originally wanted to build like this insect world and work with insects, and then so like completely random, but that's what I just enjoyed doing as a kid. And how far we go away from those things, it's very, very interesting.
Yes, yeah.
The next one for you is favorite food.
Pasta.
Okay, no, that's cool. There's no right or wrong.
Risk is sounding way too Italian here.
That's good. I love it. It's great.
All the way.
If you had to call someone your hero, who would it be and why?
I hate the question because it always comes up, and it's That's really hard. I think there are too many. You know,
Okay.
you can't just pinpoint one person. It's like,
What's the one on the tip of your
you
tongue
know,
right now?
there's like five
What's
tongue
the
right now. My
what's the
goodness.
first one? Just do it.
Okay, so do you know who at the moment I've got mad respect for a particular CEO of a man, I can feel his head blowing up right in front of me. Of a particular marketplace at the moment. Chris is like next level, just the sheer dedication he gives.
So who's this person?
And
Sorry.
Chris Deschenes, who
Okay.
is a CEO of Kalamint, so one of the Tezos minting platforms, and it's just the sheer dedication he has, the sheer love, the sheer, you know, I'm me, that's it, like
Yep.
take me or leave me kind of attitude.
Yep.
It's like, just thank you. Like I see myself
Yep.
in 10 years time, essentially. Okay. So it's kind of like, you know, there's very much connection there. Probably one of the first people I'd think of. Plus, that's, you know, your coaches, everything like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But and they change because, you know, different parts of life and seasons and things. But no, thank you for sharing that. And I'll put all those details in the show notes so people can go check out Chris. The next one is you win $10,000 today. What are you doing with it?
I'd split it in two. First off, I'd go and invest just a small amount into an early startup.
Okay.
Going back to the beginning, it's like, you know, not for the purposes of me investment, it's more so purpose of them.
Okay.
Because I've seen, you know, you've seen that kind of thing happen and kind of start. And then I'd invest. Ooh, yeah, it's hard. See, the other five, I'd probably donate some form of research.
Okay.
Whether it's, you know, take historical society or something like that, it's going into a build or a, you know, a dig, or I put it into psychedelic research.
Wow.
Two very opposite sides, but you know, there's a lot to be said for, like, you know, not treatment, but using sites for like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, for healing or alternative medicine.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, okay, I want to know more because, you know, even a small amount over there helps significantly. So that's probably
true.
Where the other half would go.
Love it. It's great. I love asking these questions because you always get something different, and it helps, you know, just form the type of person of who you are and what you're all about. So I appreciate it. And the last one for you, it's kind of like a 3-part, is 3 hobbies you like to, I guess, dabble in or do outside of the NFT or Web 3.0 space.
Definitely the books. That's a start. I'm also kind of runner.
Okay.
It's kind of sort of injured enough that it doesn't really work, but we're fine.
A love-hate relationship.
It's like my bloody calves. Just not there. Then that's another issue to do with the martial arts training. And then I think the third one, what would the third one be? I know, kind of the whole space kind of really takes over your life for a very long time. So it's kind of like, it'd be a mix. Oh no, do you know what? It's just getting out and surf.
Yep.
Like just getting out there. Whether it's actually just jumping in the freezing cold water because you can, or you know, actually getting out a board or something like that.
Yeah. No, I love it. Definitely. It's great. It's always good to have those contrasting hobbies as well, which take us, you know, we've talked about digital world and, you know, NFT and all this tech, and then to have a contrasting hobby and something which is completely opposite and outside of that, it's good because it brings us back to reality or keeps us honest. And like for me, running, it was originally for weight loss, but now it's a way to escape and just have some fun and, you know, also to challenge myself. So there's a lot that I can potentially get out of it. I can do a run that's with intent for training, or I can do a run that's just to feel good about myself, or I can do a run to go out because I need to, you know, think about something or whatnot, or, you know, so I think that's really, really good. Well, Taylor, it's been a big jam-packed episode. It's been really good to have this conversation, and I know we've really just touched the tip of the iceberg. And before we finish up, I do want to ask you, you know, if there was one thing that you could leave with the audience to take away from this episode, what would that be?
Take your time.
Okay.
Take your time is number one. Like, I know I've spoken to a few people in the past who said, take your time. Next thing I know, they're launching a project 3 days later. Yeah. It's like, and then I go, oh, why isn't it going? And it's like, So yeah, definitely just take your time. There's no rush. Even though it seems like there's a lot of rush, the
Yeah.
FOMO to get something out because it's all going to end. All the big companies are about to come in.
Yeah.
They're not. You're fine.
Yeah.
Like, you're good. Just go at your own pace. Otherwise, you're going to make some dumbass mistakes. They're not going to be worth it. And they're probably going to cost you financially big time,
Yeah. It's really good advice. And where's the best place to follow your own journeys and what you're all about? Where can people follow along, or is it a social platform, or where's the best place?
Mm-hmm. Best place, I would jump on to White Wolf _ is it NFT on Twitter.
Yep.
That's pretty much where I live, and that's it. I
Okay.
pretty much
Cool.
any other platform I send you over there.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, that's good. So you've heard it here. If you want to follow along, and of course this is all in the show notes, and if you are watching on YouTube, this is on screen as well. But no, Taylor, I really do appreciate you jumping on, and you reached out to me originally to have this conversation and to help raise some awareness, whether it's for my audience or people that stumble upon this. And I appreciate it because I've learned a lot, and I know there's so much more that I need to learn, but it's a conversation that I think we all need to be willing to start to have more and more, because it will become the day in the life of all our lives very soon, of just more people bringing this up. And I think having some bare bone understanding, some, information behind our tongues to be able to have that conversation is super important. Otherwise we could get ourselves in a pickle, or, people will start saying there's this opportunity, and, you could end up going down a slippery slope. So I really do appreciate it. And I encourage anyone that's listening, if you do have more questions, to go jump over to Twitter and reach out to Taylor and ask, or you can ask me and I'll do my best to answer. But we have listed out all those resources that you can jump down into the show notes and, go learn, go dive into it. And of course, with your wise words is take your time as well. So thank you so much, Taylor. It's been an absolute awesome conversation. It's gone very quick. And appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Jeepers. Thank you.
Too easy. All right. Cheers.
Ciao.
Well, there you go. What an awesome episode. And I think what's super cool about this topic is it's new, it's fresh, it's different, and it's very exciting, but also it can be quite overwhelming. And there is a positive to that, because we're at the early days of where we can still learn and still get involved. And my takeaway from this, same for Taylor, has been take your time. It's not about rushing into it. And for me, I know there's so much here and so much that I want to get into, but I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. And I want to make sure that it's relevant to my lifestyle, relevant to the podcast, relevant to my side hustles, and relevant to my business and passions. And I would encourage that to be the same for you. However you like to integrate it into those things, whether it's lifestyle, passion, or business, or hustles, do that. Don't just jump in thinking I need to do this because everyone else is doing it, and FOMO, and you don't want to miss out and all that jazz, because you might get yourself in a sticky situation. It's also important to remember that, don't dive into something you're not necessarily understanding, or if you are, be willing to take a risk and be willing to lose, if it's money in this case, because that is quite possibly what's going to happen. But it's an awesome space. There's plenty of people dabbling in this area. Go check out all the links in the show notes below. And of course, if you've got questions, more than happy to continue the conversation. You can hit us up on Instagram over at @furtheryourlifestyle, or you can drop a tweet at @furtheryourlife, or drop us an email at hello@furtheryourlifestyle.com. Regardless, really do appreciate you being here. It's been a wonderful opportunity to be able to bridge this conversation between yourself and Taylor. I've learned a lot, and I hope you've learned a lot, and you have a wonderful day. Cheers. Now, if you didn't know, we do have the podcast merch, and this is with a key focus of enamel pins. Now, if you haven't checked these out, make sure you do, because the intent of these are really just to be a small token and a reminder for you to charge on, to push on, and to further your lifestyle. Whether it is a gift for someone else to encourage them, or maybe to inspire them, or maybe it's a way to motivate yourself, or you can simply just make a purchase to simply support the podcast, which would be greatly appreciated. We do also have some sweaters and some long tees, so make sure you check it out. Link in the description and in the show notes. Really do appreciate it. Cheers.